I'm Nadira Tudor, and this is The Fall of Kabul, a soldier's story. Was it worth it? I think we'll start with what you were doing when you heard that Kabul had fallen.
So when I heard that Kabul has fallen, I was actually deployed in Middle East. So I was shocked, devastated, because I was just there from late 2019 to late 2020. So I know that there was a plan of a gradual move of the mission, and having the Afghan government taking over responsibility for their security. But to have that news up front that Kabul has fallen, it was extremely surprising. So I actually received emails from my fellow AFPAC hand advisors, and even from my mentors, stating that they were also shocked. So it was indescribable for me. So
why do you think you felt like that? What was going through your mind?
Well, just to go back to my background, I've been to Afghanistan at least 7 times. Did 5 one-year tours. 2 of those tours were a back-to-back 1-year deployment. So I've invested not just physically, but also emotionally, and I've had some really good relationship with the people, individuals that I work with in Afghanistan, not just with the local Afghans, but also with the military, international partners, contractors, and civilians. So I've invested a lot of both emotions, professionally, and personally as well.
So when you got the news that Kabul had fallen, it really affected you?
Yes, it did. Each stories by military members, civilians, or contractors, it's a little bit different. I'm pretty sure that they have sacrificed at some level for being there. For me, my dad passed away while I was deployed. My mom, my niece and nephew passed away. I was not able to go home. So I thought myself that with all those sacrifices I've had, both personally and professionally, and this is the outcome of that at my level. And I'm pretty sure that there are more individuals that's been there, spent a lot of time, that probably would feel the same way as I do.
So at that moment,
at that moment,
all these things came back to you.
All these things came back, and of course, this is just my opinion, not with the U.S. Air Force or the U.S. government or the current organization that I work with. I felt betrayed, to tell you the truth. Why ask individuals to invest or be there, and then all of a sudden have this abrupt 360 degree change to the mission that we hope for will have a positive outcome at the end.
So for you, it wasn't a positive outcome?
For me, no, it was not. The fall of Kabul was really fresh for me because it was just months after I was there. So I've cultivated a lot of relationship not just with the interpreters or the tarjumans, but also the Afghan civilians that work for or work with at the ministerial levels, the militaries, and the stories that we've talked about, the personal information. Couple things that actually comes into my mind was one of my interpreters, both females. So the first one, I'm referring to my translator, the female translator, who was actually the sole provider of her family, and it was very, I wouldn't say weird, but okay, I'll use weird in such a way in a cultural context, because she actually opened to me and talked to me about her family problems, i.e. that she's the sole provider for the family. At the same time, she was being abused both physically and sexually by his brother-in-law. So it was really hardening for me. So that type of personal information that they share with you, it really affects you emotionally, and it makes you closer to that person that actually telling you that personal story. And so what I've asked is, what are your plans? So I don't know if you're familiar with the special immigrant visa that's provided to the civilians or military that actually work with or contractors work with the certain nations. So I've actually asked her, hey, this is the process, I help her out. So, and she was able to get out of that situation, and she actually left without telling her family that she's going to the States. So, and for us, as a team within the organization that I work with, of course, we have to advise that it's not just really a land of, honey, did you go there and then you have money. So we try to educate her and at least give her some financial means to survive for the first month. So that was one of probably the relationship that I still recall, because personally, yes, we only changed the life of one person, but that means a lot to that person. So unfortunately for her family, it's a different story. So second one was a female Afghan National Police colonel that I work with. So with the general training education, and she told me a story that I can still believe nowadays, even right now, how her dad was buried by the Taliban back in prior the U.S. and the allied nations going to Afghanistan, and in front of the family forced his dad to eat stones and pebbles until he passed away. So if you hear something firsthand, that type of story, sorry, it's something that you will never forget. So what I did was that I promised her that at my level, I will do everything that I can to help her out. And the sad part was, her house is just about a block away where the guy that ordered to kill his father lived. So I mean, how disheartening that is. So I help her out to come to the U.S. to be exposed on how community policing and how gender really affects the community itself. So Afghanistan is composed of like 54% of females, and after the fall, she sent me a message saying, "Hey, we are in the border of Pakistan. We're trying to get out." Her husband was killed, and what can I do? what can you help me? So unfortunately, I felt powerless. What can I do?
It seems to me that you still feel powerless.
Yes, I do. So, I mean, I have a lot of good relationship with a lot of individuals from Afghanistan that are still reaching out to me, asking assistance. So, but currently, there's nothing that I can do except to either in terms of the special immigration visa that they applied for, I'll send letters to the U.S. Embassy saying, hey, can you please, look at all of these documents where it is in the queue, or talk to other individuals, both military and civilians, that are probably in the same situation as I am, being reached out by friends, or extended family that you already considered, that are still there in Kabul or wherever they may be in Afghanistan, on how you can assist them. But it's extremely frustrating.
And deeply upsetting.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I get too emotional because I've never really talked about this. So for me, this is kind of a therapy as well. So, because my experience in Afghanistan, for the most part, is probably as different as most of the individuals, because I was out and about every day, working with the locals, interacting with them. So knowing their life stories, their hardships, you get emotional, but of course, at the same time, you get to be objective in order to do what you need to do to be there.
I think I'd like to understand a little bit, because I'm certainly feeling how really difficult this was for you. I'd like to understand why you joined the military initially, and what you thought then and what you think now.
So in my background in the Air Force is an acquisition. So, I deal with money, resources. So my first deployment in Afghanistan, it was because I was told. So I was voluntold by the Air Force to assist the Afghan National Defense Security Forces to build their capacity, buying weapons, tanks, name it, even with the airplanes. And although my exposure engaging with the Afghans at that time during my initial, I would say around couple deployments there, was limited, but it reinforced my belief that what we were doing there in Afghanistan was very important. And I came to love the Afghan culture itself and the people. So they're actually very warm individuals. So for the following deployments, I actually volunteered, and I volunteered to be that AFPACAN program, where we actually go through a rigorous training, both language and cultural, and it enabled me to communicate more efficiently and work every day with them, and so I get to understand and have a different perspective at that level.
And when you started your career all those years ago, fresh-faced, I'm imagining.
Okay.
Did you come from a military family? What was the reason?
So it's more of a tradition within my family. So my dad was in the Army. My sister actually was in the Air Force. My uncle was in the in the Navy. So I actually didn't intend to, to join the Air Force. So a friend of mine wanted to see a recruiter. It's like, hey, I wanted to join the Air Force, and then the recruiter asked me, hey, why don't you also join? And I told myself, why not? So and the Air Force has been great. It has provided me a lot of experience, not just with my free education, but the ability to actually experience working in Afghanistan, which very few people would be able to understand. I mean, they can just see it in the TV. Working with NATO, so I've been deployed in the Middle East as well. So the Air Force really has broadened my horizon and the ability to understand how, in a great scheme of things, really works. So,
Were there poignant moments? Were there moments that stood out for you when you were deployed in Afghanistan, where you thought, I don't really know how to deal with this. I don't know why I'm here. Were there any moments that really stood out and affected you?
danger is pretty much inherent to what we do in the mission that we had in Afghanistan. So most of it I've already came into terms with it. That if something happens, and unfortunately, it is what it is. But the sad part of that is when you go out on a mission, working with allied partners. I work with really young, early 20s, from UK, and it was their first time being away from the country, let alone in being in Afghanistan. So it's kind of heartbreaking to think of those what ifs. If something happens and all of us get hit by an IED, for example, an explosive, and we all passed away, how would those parents of those kids, So even for my family, it's hard for them to fathom that I've been there multiple times. And what I did was that I sometimes don't tell them where I am. There were some occasions where I was supposed to be in a mission. Unfortunately, for whatever divine intervention, we either delay or postponed, and something big happened along the route. And in the back of your mind, it's like, oh my God, we would have been there and we would have been caught. I've been in a situation where I'm having a meeting, and all of a sudden they would have a lockdown in the facility or in the building that we have, because next door we're being attacked. I was on a mission, and somebody put a gun behind my back, and somebody jumped on it. So, as I've said, it's inherent, not just in Afghanistan, but as a military person deploying and supporting a mission.
I have to ask you now, and it's the burning question, isn't it? Of having experienced everything that you've experienced, was Afghanistan worth it?
For all of the years that I've been there, the things that I've done, and the effort that actually people collectively as a community, both with the allied partners, NATO, the U.S., and everybody else, even the contractors. For me personally, I think it was worth it. So
even with all the sacrifices that you talked about?
Even with the sacrifices. So I've, for example, my very first time when I went there, you go you go out into the city in Kabul, which I was allowed to at that time, and by the virtue of my job, you would see the progress that actually happened during those period. The ability for family to send their young girls to school, to see little children running in the street of Kabul. So it really warms my heart, and try to speak to you in English. So knowing that these kids will have a future. So I think it was worth it for me. And I think the hope that we gave them collectively, though fleeting as it may seem, and as a consolation, I mean, it meant a lot to a lot of people there in Afghanistan. So not just for the people individuals that I work with, that I assisted with, but also with other secondhand stories. How families are able to afford education, a little bit of healthcare. That most of us are able to eat 3 times a day. That most of us, we take for granted. Even access to water and sanitation. Most of my interpreters and people that work in our base would take shower in our facilities. Because, as you know, Afghanistan is a very mountainous country. And trying to get water from the base of the mountain up to the highest point where you live is hard. And during winter time, it's so cold that literally I would see people, local nationals, taking out books from our dormitories, and I thought, oh my God, they're reading, but they're not. They're using it as a fuel. So.
Was it worth it for you?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on The Fall of Kabul, A Soldier's Story. For more episodes and in-depth exploration, visit us on YouTube and on podcast streaming platforms.